see the title. And yes, this week's episode is a little intense. This week's episode, I am a bit riled up, and rightly so. My anger, my frustration, the intensity of this episode is just because I want the best for you. I want the best for all of us. And I need you, I need everyone, I need myself to understand that it is a victory that will not come without bloodshed. Not physical bloodshed, but the rivers will run red. It is a must. And it is an eventuality, a necessary evil to the life that we deserve. So it's time to make those sacrifices. It's time to charge into battle and claim what's ours. All right, so it's time for us to roll up our sleeves and really get dirty. No more Mr. Nice Guy, Yeah, we can kumbaya and hold hands and pray and meditate and do yoga and all of those wonderful things and look into the mirror and say our affirmations, but deep down at our core, we know the truth, right? We know that every now and again, you just have to pick up a brick and throw it. You know what I mean? You have to pick up that white lawn chair that was in that, fight, that Alabama, was it Alabama? I don't know. Anyway, point is, pick up your nearest lawn chair and launch it at your nearest enemy. Now, who are your enemies, you may ask? Who isn't your enemy? You know what I mean? Because if you ain't for us, then you're against us. Okay? Now, you're catching me at the tail end of reading some Frantz Fanon, and if you know anything about anything that Frantz Fanon has written, it be getting you riled up sometimes. You know what I mean? I periodically go back to reading Frantz Fanon and, all the authors of that era and that, type. And honestly, why I do it, I think it's sometimes because as you go through life, you become desensitized to certain aspects of life. And as much as almost every episode of late has been, about dismantling, the patriarchy and dismantling capitalism and, you know what I mean? How to find a life and a space for yourself outside of the structures that existed before you, the structures and the systems that govern our lives, and that in many ways make our personal lives ungovernable. So I'm still sticking to that topic because I think it's important. I think it's important that we constantly endeavor to find any modicum of peace, any crevice of freedom that we can create for ourselves, that we fight tooth and nail to acquire it. Now, I was reading The Wretched of the Earth today as I was waiting for a friend who was running late, for dinner. And no, I wasn't irritated this time because they communicated well in advance, so I understood what the situation was and intentionally grabbed the book just, as some quote unquote light reading while I wait. And damn. It, as I was reading, it was just stirring something up inside me. just two things. One, feeling seen in a way that, especially living in Cape Town, you rarely, as a Black person, have the opportunity to be seen in that way. But secondly, it, it tapped into a certain level of rage that is ever present in me, that I work very hard at keeping at bay because it is counterproductive, right, to my day-to-day life, but is there nonetheless. The frustration that you have with the injustices that you see in the world, right? That, like, why isn't life fair? Why are some people just born with a silver spoon in their mouths, right? Just why, and why do certain people have to go through certain things? Why are they exposed to so much while others are shielded from the realities of life? And, like, also, what does it mean about us as people and as a society that such things are just a part of reality, right? That this is just life for people like us. You know what I mean? Now, not to be too vague, and because I don't want to take too long with today's episode, because my point is quite simple, right? And it builds on the previous episodes, specifically last week's episode, when we're talking about, dismantling structures and not looking to the cursed generation for validation when you are trying to break generational curses. Because there is something to be said about privilege in any setting, in any situation, right? You have a certain privilege, and a part of you sees the people that don't partake, do not have the luxury of that privilege, and that they yearn to have access to what you have access to, right? You can see in their eyes, that there's a lust, for what you have. And there's something scary about that, There's something scary about the possibility of this privilege that you have and hold so dear, the possibility of it being taken away from you, that somehow these people will surpass you and that you will take their place. And as much as you might try and, fool yourself into thinking that, like, no, it isn't that bad, they're just being dramatic, you know what I mean? Life isn't that bad. I also have my own struggles, da 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 da. You know damn well you wouldn't choose to be in their position. That a part of you sighs a sigh of relief that it is them and not you. Whatever point of privilege you exist on, right? Because there's a scale. It could be, financial security. It could be your race. It could be your gender. It could be the fact that you're able-bodied, or whatever, right? That you're maybe cisgendered. There are many areas in life where you might find yourself higher up on the totem pole than other people. That does not negate the other areas of your life where you are not high on the totem pole. But I think it is important for us to acknowledge the places and the spaces where we have privilege, right? One, because I think it helps us understand what exactly we are trying to do when we are trying to dismantle the structures that seek to oppress us, right? It gives us insight into the oppressor's mind because we too have a privilege that we are trying to hold on to. We too have access to things that other people don't have access to and are not willing to let go of those things, right? You might perhaps, see and hear the struggles of transgender people, right? And you might empathize and, you might be supportive and, you're not transphobic in any way, shape, or form. But if someone were to hold a gun to your head and say, would you choose that life, knowing its struggles, knowing how hard it is for someone to be trans, the mortality rate, the discrimination that they face on a daily basis, the, landmines that they have to navigate through as they try to create relationships and try to build lives for themselves. You know what I mean? Like, is this a struggle that you want to have? Is this a struggle that you would have chosen? And it even goes to the question of, if you could choose your race, would you choose to be black? Right? And like, yeah, sometimes, when you ask white people that question, they're like, yeah, I'd love to, because, I'd have rhythm and I'd have hips and I'd have whatever. And the only reason why they would choose blackness is for the things that they already steal from us anyway. The things that they pay thousands and thousands of rands to mimic, right? That these are the parts that for them, black people are things to be chopped up and consumed, right? To never be seen as whole, but merely seen as a series of, interesting, desirable parts, but never as a person, right? So it is only ever really in those instances where I hear white people coveting, black people. And again, it's they coveting black bodies, but not the blackness that body exists in. Does that make sense? And now you may be asking yourself, where am I going with this point? Bish, I don't know. Okay? If you're new here, my apologies, but for everyone else, this is not your first rodeo. You know that every episode is a series of rabbit holes that somehow connect at the end. Okay? So just stick with me. Now, what has me riled up here, right, is Frantz Fanon was talking about the fact that any form of, decolonization, any form of, change that we might want, any sort of separation or alteration that we would like to make to the status quo, that it requires violence, right? And not because we are inherently violent people, but because the position we find ourselves in is inherently violent, right? The oppression that we find ourselves, suffering under, that is a form of violence. And that non-violence in and of itself is a privilege. To choose to opt out of fighting is a privilege, right? Because what do you do when there's no other option, right? Because let's, go back to the, black and white, would a white person choose to be black? If a black person asked a white person nicely, hey, hi, sorry, excuse me, hi, yeah. I was just wondering, could we swap races for a second? I just want to apply for a loan, and I have a job interview coming up, and yeah, I really think that it could help me. You know what I mean? If I could just be, white, can I just borrow your whiteness and you can hold on to my blackness? You know what I mean? You can be black for a while. Swear your hips, say nigga as much as you like, you know what I mean? And like, live your best life. And I'll be back like in a week, and we'll swap back. Obviously I want to be recognizable to my family, so I'll bring it back. But can I just, And like, what white person, even if it was possible, what white person in their right mind would, knowing very well how we are treated, how we live, you know, it's just not going to happen, right? Now, are we really going to sit around and wait for someone else to give us permission to be free, to be safe, to be seen, right? Is that really what we're going to do? So, yes, the white person has the privilege to disengage, right? To choose, well, there has to be another way, right? Because you're not currently on fire. Someone who's on fire or someone who's in a burning house, right? To tell them that they are uncivilized for smashing the windows and, crawling out or jumping out the window or breaking down the wall or, grabbing an axe and just destroying everything in their path on their way out of the house, right? To say that, oh, well, surely there must have been a better way to do it. Look what you've done to the house. Like, the house is damaged. And, like, to behave in that way is just so unladylike. Surely you could have done something else. Who the fuck are you, bitch? Who are you? Who are you to tell me how to deal with this dire situation that I'm in? I'm suffocating. And you're telling me that gasping for air is unladylike. That all I need to do is, breathe gently, maintain my composure, I can't be pulling those funny faces, grabbing at the air, patting at my chest, all these other things. It's just, it's too much, And I think sometimes we forget, we get lulled into this, basically we get lulled into forgetting the atrocities that are happening to us, right? We get the wool pulled over our eyes with consumerism and, all these TV shows and celebrity gossip and, social media, and there are all these forms of escapism, right? Things that make us forget, that blind us to the present moment, right? Because if we're not aware of what's happening around us, right? If we don't have our eyes open and really see what is going on around us, like if anyone just had their eyes open, you'd be incensed. Like there'd be no way that you could stay calm and be like, oh yeah, this is a wonderful life. This is great. It's all peaches and roses and we're all just frolicking in meadows. Like this is a nightmare. This is a nightmare. It's a dumpster fire. There are children burning in Palestine, right? There are children being raped by their fathers in South Africa. There are young girls being murdered by their quote unquote lovers who are twice their age. All of these things are happening all the time. But it's just a little blip. You might see a little story about it. You might see, like, oh, someone makes a comment about it. But before you could even digest the depth of that information, the tragedy that has just fallen upon a family and a community, you already swept away in another, TikTok story, a little, who did I marry, or some Reddit am I the asshole story. And that's that, that's that. We've now moved on to the next thing. We have video games and we have movies and music and everything under the sun working towards making us forget, distracting us from the true tragedy that surrounds us. Because, one, I can't even blame us for reaching for those, vices, because constantly being aware of what's happening is torture. It is torture, and it is unbearable to expect someone to constantly exist as an open wound, bleeding, constantly in pain, suffering at the sight of all the atrocities that are happening, suffering in the realization of all the atrocities that are being done to them, right? From, our language around blackness and our beauty standards and all these different things, right? We are being made to feel small and insignificant and worthless constantly. And yes, it draws back to our previous episodes, right? Where I'm talking about, that sometimes a little, humility, it doesn't serve you at all, right? That being humble doesn't serve anyone, right? And that these are the little things that they do to train us into being silent. These are the things that, society has ingrained in us. For what purpose, right? To serve the system that hates us. And we comply, right? We comply because in exchange for our compliance, we are given more numbing agents, right? There's now not only Shein, but there's Temu. And before, Shein and Temu, there was Alibaba, right? And there's Amazon, and there's Take-A-Lot, and there's all these different things, right? I mean, how many chicken restaurants can one really have? We've got, what is it, Muchachos. We've got, I think, Prego, or whatever the place is that starts with the Pedro's. There it is. We've got Nando's. We've got KFC. We've got Chicken Licken. We've got whatever. And all of them are basically selling the same thing, But the reason why we have all these options is so that we can shove our faces with food, right? Get that like little short-lived dopamine rush, and, all is well with the world. And whatever little thing was frustrating me before, well, it's fine now. I'm okay. I feel a lot better. I managed to eat my feelings away. I managed to eat my frustration away. I ate my pain away, right? And other people, they drink their pain away. Other people, they sex their pain away, smoke their pain away, video game their pain away. The pain of existing in a system and in a society that seeks to kill and destroy us on a daily basis. It is no wonder we all have our vices. We all have something we reach to numb the pain. So I understand, and I am not trying to judge anybody who chooses, who actively chooses their vices, actively chooses to numb themselves instead of having to face the reality of what life is here on this planet. But if you ever just get tired, if you ever just want things to change, right? If you ever think about and desire freedom, it's not going to come easily. It's not going to be handed to us on a silver platter, no matter how nicely we ask. We're going to have to fight and take it. We're going to have to confront our demons, call a spade, stand 10 toes down, look the oppressor in the eye, look your haters in the eye, and say, I'm not budging. The only direction I'm moving in is forward. I am moving forward towards the freedom that I want, and I will demolish any obstacle in my way, anything, anyone that seeks to steer me off my path. That's the type of energy we need to have now. it is all fine and well to be kind and be like, oh, I'm on my own journey and, I'm going to do my own thing. And you know what I mean? Everything will be fine as long as I believe in myself, as long as, I work hard and as long as I do this. No, bish, no, bish. You can't positive attitude yourself into freedom. You cannot manifest, suck on a few crystals, burn a candle, and manifest freedom for yourself. Yes, it might be, part of the process, right? It might be something that helps you gain the clarity you need to find out who you need to go fight next. But at the end of the day, it's a fight. And sometimes you have to fight yourself. You have to fight the beliefs that you have about yourself, the beliefs you have about the world, the misconceptions you have about what it means to be successful, right? Sometimes, and more often than not, the fight is internal. Because once you've conquered yourself, conquering other people is pap and vlees. Once you've conquered yourself, once you've conquered your self-sabotage, your procrastination, your negative, self-belief, and your investment in the systems that seek to destroy you, once you have conquered those things, once you've really sat down with yourself and say, you know what? I'm going to war. I'm going to war with all the things that I believe and all the things that I hold dear that I shouldn't have any business dealing with. Once you fight that fight, once you conquer those demons, the rest of the world has nothing on you because you have conquered the hardest thing. You've achieved something that most people never get to achieve. And once you've done that, some Becky, with the high-pitched voice and, the sandals and the booty shorts in winter, they'll mean nothing to you. Some employer who tries to dangle your salary as a carrot as well as the stick to beat you with, that's not going to matter anymore. It won't be as intimidating because you'll know who you are. You will have fought bigger demons within yourself. That some bitch with a superiority complex ain't nothing but a chicken wing, okay? And you will move right through that obstacle as if it wasn't even there. But at the end of the day, it is still a fight. It is still a fight, but it requires first understanding and acknowledging the violence that has been done to you in the first place. And it isn't always just whiteness. It isn't always, capitalism or patriarchy. Sometimes the violence is in your own home. Sometimes the violence is in the things that you were told to believe about yourself by people who were meant to love you unconditionally, the people who convinced you that you were hard to love in the first place. How can you fight for your own freedom if you do not believe that you're worth fighting for at all? So those are the demons that we need to fight first. And this is what I'm trying to say. This is what I'm trying to say to you, and hear me clearly. You deserve the life you want, but you're not going to just get it. You know what I mean? You're not going to just wake up one day and it will fall into your lap. You are going to have to fight for it. You're going to have to fight for it. And fighting looks different. I'm not saying, pick up a spear and start stabbing bitches who look at you funny. No. The fight comes in many forms. It comes in ending relationships, going no contact with bitches. The fight, means not engaging with certain types of media, perhaps. The fight means really being conscientious about where you spend your money, who you spend your money with, and how you spend your money, right? The fight can be accepting that you might be isolated for some time, that you might not, have a support structure for a while, right? That you might be your only support for some time. And that's the fight that you need to fight. That's the good fight. Understanding that going alone might be better if you are going in the right direction than going in a group to your demise. Do you understand? I really hope you hear me. I need you to get up and fight. Fight for the things you want. Fight, fight, fight. It is going to be hard. You will need to take a break from time to time. But taking a break, resting, and giving up are two different things. Are two very different things. And I implore you to rest when you need to, but never stop fighting. Never stop fighting for what you believe in, not just for yourself, right, and your personal goals and all the things you want to achieve in your life, but for the injustices that you see around you in the world. Fight in the best way that you can. And fighting means speaking up when you hear people saying, ridiculous things and sharing, political or social beliefs that are harmful. Because you need to think about, and I was talking to a friend about this the other day, that, they were surprised that I spoke up about, the Israel-Palestine situation. When I was talking to my mom, right? Because she's my elder, and how dare you, contradict your elder and tell them that they're wrong, right? Even though you might disagree, you keep that information to yourself and you keep it pushing. And as much as that's how we've been raised, that's not something I agree with. Because I know that if my friend was in a room with someone who was talking ill about me, right, who was saying that every horrible thing that has happened in my life, I deserved it because, I'm not a good person, and that there's just something wrong with me, that I'm a second-class citizen, I would hope that my friend would have the courage to speak up for me. And whether we are friends or not, I would hope that anyone in that room who is hearing those terrible things being said about me to people who have the power to continue my suffering, that the people in that room with the ears to hear it would have the courage and the strength to face that person and challenge them and tell them that they're wrong. Because the reason why these bad political beliefs, these bad and toxic and negative opinions exist and are able to, really grow deep roots is because people don't speak up. The people who know better don't do better. They just stand and they are quiet because this issue doesn't affect them and it's not their place to say, and you want to just respect people's opinions. No, the time to be polite, the time to be respectful has long passed. And when it comes to, harm that is being done to others and harm being done to yourself, being silent means being complicit. You have a duty to yourself and all the people that you hold dear, all the values that you hold. You have a duty to fight for them, even if it means having the courage to speak up to an elder, to challenge someone in a position of authority, because you know the right thing and you are going to stand for it. So I'm going to get off my soapbox now. And yes, I'm a little riled up because I do want to, get on a horse with a sword and just charge into battle and slay everything that seeks to convince me that I should hide, make myself small, and that I don't matter. I want to charge into battle and fight for the people who cannot fight for themselves, the children who are watching their families die right in front of them, the young girls who are being exploited and abused by their family members, and grown-ass men who should know better. I want to go off into battle and come back victorious. And if not, I would have died a worthy death, because I died fighting for what I love. And like, this is another episode talking about dying, and no, don't get any ideas. But my point is just, as I said in a previous episode, we're dying anyway. And something, I don't know, I think it's like a Cuban saying or a Spanish, or it's a saying, but basically, this revolutionary at some point had said that they would rather die on their feet than live on their knees. And I really want you to think about that. Think about the life that you're building for yourself. Think about your personhood, and your personhood in relation to the people and the structures around you. Are you living on your knees? Or are you standing up, looking death and destruction in the eye and saying, listen, first person to flinch goes, and it's not gonna be me. Yeah, this is the time. This is the time. The best time to have planted a tree was 10 years ago, but the second best time is right now. So yeah, you might not have been on the right path before, but if you want to, it's never too late to get back on the right path. It's never too late to make different decisions, to pick up your brick, to launch your lawn chair. It is never too late. Because even if, you spent most of your life, or you quote unquote wasted most of your life on idle pursuits, you're here now, and you're not going to spend the rest of your life believing the lie, but instead you are going to enjoy the rest of your days living in the truth of your greatness, of how amazing you are, and the fact that the people around you are safer because you're in their lives, because they know that you will stand up for what's right, that you will fight for them, because you know that that is the only way that you get the freedom that you want, that you get the life that you want. You don't ask for it, you take it. So yeah, pumasile, boo, pumasile, because no more, this far and no further. All the things that you were taught, all the terrible things that were said about you, that your family made you believe about yourself, that society made you believe about yourself, and you've gone around and you've made it your truth. No more, no more. It's time for the truth, and not for a version of events, a story that's been told so many times that it maybe sounds true, that it must be true. It's the only story you've ever heard. Well, it's time to write a new story. Get a pen and a paper. Because at some point many years ago, some bitch got a pen and a paper and decided to write that nonsense that now we're all believing. So it doesn't really take much to change. All you have to do is rip up that old piece of paper, smash it on the ground, spit on it, burn it, throw it away, and write a new story. Steal the pen if you need to. Whew. Yeah, I feel a lot better now. Much, much better. It's just wonderful getting some things off your chest, even if it does mean just speaking it into the ether. But I'm glad I got to say it. I'm glad I got to acknowledge my desire, my yearning for a better life, and coming to the realization that it is a life that I'm going to have to fight for, and that I might have to kill versions of myself that are no longer in alignment with the life that I want. I'm going to have to separate myself from people who do not fit in the picture that I'm trying to create. That the road will not be easy, but every step of it will be worth it. Enjoy the rest of your week. Be kind to yourself. And let's get out there and fight.